Good morning, my dear children. Hope you are all safe at home. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce myself. I am Avis Paul, your teacher for English. Before beginning the session, let me introduce Standard 7 English course book based on the Kerala State syllabus. Our academic year is divided into 3 terms. For each term, we will be having 3 different English course book. So this is your English course book for Standard 7, Term 1. So here you can see 1 out of 3, which means 2 are yet to come in the upcoming terms. And in this first course book, you will have 2 different units. That is Unit 1, Nature's Plenty, and Unit 2, Tales and Tunes. So today, we'll be discussing or we'll be starting with the first unit, that is Nature's Plenty. Unit 1, Nature's Plenty. So without wasting time, now let's get started. Well, my dear ones, I'm sure that you have all collected your textbooks from the school very recently. Is it so? So now take your English course book, take this page. You can see a picture in this, isn't it? So what do you see in this picture? Can you see something there? Very colorful, isn't it? You can see a beautiful illustration. What do you see in this picture? Very good. You can see trees, there are birds, animals, then you can see a river, beautiful flowers, mountain, the sky, isn't it? Can you describe this particular picture in a single word? Very good. It is the nature. Nature's plenty. Nature, when you look deep into the nature, you can see many lot of things, isn't it? Like birds, animals, beautiful flowers, trees, and so on. These are the things that you can see in the nature. Can you just see things only? Or is there something that you can hear when you look into the nature? Is it something that you can hear? Yes, you can hear the chopping of the birds. You can listen to the sound of the thunder, the rain, isn't it? Yes. And is there something that you can smell? Exactly, you can smell the fragrance of the flowers, ripening fruits, the dust, isn't it? Everything has a very beautiful smell, or the scent which is very cool. Now, you can just move on to the next page, page number 8, where you will find a table. Okay, in this table, you have to write, hope you understand it, you have to write the things that you see while you are making a nature trip. Just imagine that you are making a nature walk and just list out the things that you could see and the things that you could hear. Sorry, the sound that you could hear and whatever you could smell. Okay, everything should be connected with nature. Now, let me ask you something. Do you love listening to stories? Yes or no? Yes, isn't it? Even I love listening to stories. Have you heard about a person named Ruskin Bond? Yes or no? Okay, Ruskin Bond, he's actually an Indian who writes in English. He's an Indian writer who writes in English. He was born in the year 1934. You may please shift to page number 12, where you could see a photograph of Ruskin Bond. See, Ruskin Bond. He was born in the year 1934. And as I've already mentioned, he is an Indian writer but who writes in English. He have written more than 500 short stories. He writes mainly for children, so his contribution is much more in children's literature. He has to his credit many number of novels and even poems. Okay, now we are going to listen to a very beautiful story written by Ruskin Bond titled How Far is the River? So, as I've already mentioned, the title of our story is in the form of a question. You can see a question mark, isn't it? So, the title is How Far is the River? And it is by Ruskin Bond, who is an Indian writer who writes in English. Now, this story is the story of a young boy who is 12 years old, which means he is of your age. Okay? He loves to make adventure trip. He loves nature. So, this story is about his adventurous trip that he makes through nature. And we need to know, where did he go? What did he see? And how did he feel? The answer to all these questions are there in the story. So now let's begin the story. Once upon a time, there lived a young boy who was 12 years old. He was very strong. He was a sturdy boy. Sturdy means a very strong boy. He was physically very strong. He was a person who had fine features, which means he was good looking. Okay, like you, like all of you. He was very handsome. He was very good looking. But about his hair, he had untidy black hair. What do you do usually when you wake up in the morning? You brush your teeth, wash your face, and you comb your hair, isn't it? Here, with this boy, he was so careless about his hair, so he kept it untidy. He had untidy black hair, but he had shining black eyes. You see the stars shining, isn't it? Shining bright. Similarly, he had a very black eyes that was shining. But, his hands and feet were rough and scratched. Just look at your hands. Just feel your palms with your right hand. Just feel both hands. Is it soft or is it rough? If it is soft, I'm sure you never help your mom in the kitchen. You never wash your clothes. Is it so? If so, it will be soft. If not, if you're doing some manual things with your hands, and if you're working hard with the hands and feet and all, then it will be rough and scratched. Okay? And if at all your feet are very good, without any scratches or patches, that means you're protecting your legs or feet with the shoes or slippers, isn't it? If we are not wearing this shoes or slippers and we are walking through the stones, you will get some patches or scratches, isn't it? So, here the boy's feet has scratches, which means he liked to walk barefooted. Barefooted means without any shoes or socks or slippers. It doesn't mean that he was not able to afford to buy the shoes or something, but it is because he wanted to feel the warmth of the stones. He wanted to feel the grass, and he wanted to just feel the water. And if there is shoes or slippers, he couldn't feel it. If you want to feel it naturally, you should be barefooted. So this boy was such a boy who loved to be a part of nature. He wanted to be so close to the nature, and so he was barefooted. Hope you understood about the boy, the physical appearance of the boy, isn't it? Now, the boy, where did he stay? His house was on top of a hill. Okay? I'll represent the same here. Okay? The boy's house was on top of a hill. What do you mean by a hill? It is a slight projection, a steep projection from the earth's surface. If this is the earth's surface, you can see a slight projection on the surface of the earth, which is a hill. So there you can see the boy's house, okay, on top of the hill. And soon after the hill there was valley, a valley. What do you mean by a valley? It is a low range area. Okay, usually it is soon after the hill or in between the mountain, you will see a low range area, and these are called valley. I'm sure that you are familiar with the valley because you have learned about the valleys, plateaus and so on in your 5th standard social science. I'm sure you are all familiar with the valley. And there was a valley, and after that there was a steep mountain. Okay, there was a steep mountain, and beyond that mountain there was a river. A river was flowing beyond that mountain. Okay, and one thing more to be added, this mountain was thickly forested. Thickly forested means they were full of trees, climbers, flowers and so on in this mountain. And here is a boy in front of his house. This boy, the hero of our story, he had a dream in his mind. What was that? He wanted to see the beautiful river beyond the mountain. Okay? He had heard about this beautiful river flowing from the villagers, that there were a lot of tiny fishes in the river. You can see beautiful rocks, crystal clear water flowing in the river. He had just heard all these things from the villagers, like woodcutters, the milkmen, the mule drivers who are coming from the other villages to his village. They have told these stories, but this boy haven't felt this personally. So he had a dream that he should go to the river and he wanted to feel this river personally. So that was the dream or the passion that he had in his mind, a nature lover. Okay? And what happened? Let's wait and see. With this dream in his mind, he was waiting for a time to come. And one day, he came to know that his parents are going to his relative's house. There is some of their relatives' house, and they won't be there at home for the entire day. Underline, entire day. They are not going to be there in the house. It's the right time to do or to make some trip, isn't it? You might be familiar with such experiences. Well, the boy then thought to make a trip. Where? To the river. And then suddenly he went to the kitchen, and then he saw there was a loaf of bread. You're familiar with the bread and jam, bread and cheese, butter. You're familiar with bread, isn't it? The whole piece of bread, okay, the entire bread. We call it as loaf of bread. And if you cut it into pieces, these are called the slices of bread. So there was a loaf of bread, what did the boy do? He wrapped it in a newspaper. What do you mean by wrap? When you have chocolates, there are wrappers on it, which means the chocolates are being protected, are covered with these wrappers. Same way, the boy took the loaf of bread and he wrapped it, covered it with the newspaper. Okay? And he thought on his way he might get some fruits or some berries, and he can pluck it and have it. And he quickly took the loaf of bread with him, closed all the doors and windows, and then he started his trip. He started his journey. And as we all know, from the hill he stepped out, and through the valley he started his trip to the river. On his way he saw a woodcutter. He saw a woodcutter. Who is a woodcutter? A man who cuts trees and collect the firewood and all. So you're familiar with an axe, isn't it? So that is a woodcutter. He is the woodcutter. So he met a woodcutter and he inquired. He is so familiar. The woodcutter is so familiar with the path that he has to travel, and so this boy asked the woodcutter, "Woodcutter, how far is the river?" And the woodcutter told him, 7 miles, my dear. "And why do you want to know?" asked the woodcutter. And the boy told, "Well, I want to see the river." The woodcutter said, "Are you alone?" "Of course," said the boy. Then the woodcutter added, "But you know, my dear, it will take around 3 hours to reach there, and you have to come back too, which means it will be dark when you reach home. So is it safe to go alone? And the roads are not tarred, or it is not safe. It is so rough. There are rocks. There is forest. You have to climb the mountain, and it is not that easy." But the boy said, with a smiling face, he added that, "I am a good walker. I love nature. I love walking. So I don't care." But you know something? The boy told, "I'm a good walker," isn't it? But you know, he had made his trip. The only trip that he has made is from his house to the school and from the school to the house. And he's telling that he's a good walker. What might happen next? Let's stay tuned to the story. The boy continued his travel through the winding path. Look at the picture. It is not that easy to climb the mountains, steep mountains, isn't it? There might be long winding. Winding means like spring. There might be cuts and curves, bends that you have to take. So he went through all the dizzy path, okay? The lush green forest, the creepers, he saw the creepers on the trees, wild dahlia flowers. He enjoyed the beauty of the nature, and he continued walking. And then suddenly he saw a girl coming in the opposite direction. And that was a young pretty girl. She had a curved knife in her hand. But the curved knife is used to cut the grass. Okay? So she had the curved knives in her hand, and she was wearing bangles. You're familiar with the bangles. See, I have bangles in my hand. See? The bangles. When you have more than one bangle, when you move your hands like this, you can hear the sound of the bangles, isn't it? What is this sound? What is the sound? It is the first bangle is talking to the next one. in their own language, says the author. Okay, Ruskin Bond beautifully describes that the bangles are talking to each other in their language. Okay, so that's the girl. The boy, when he saw the girl, he asked the girl, "Hey little girl, do you know how far is the river?" And the girl, she was very careless, without any hesitation, without even thinking, she just told, "It's 20 miles. 20 miles. What was the reply given by the woodcutter? Very good. It was 7 miles. And what was the reply given by the girl? She told it is 20 miles. So, the boy understood that the reply given by the girl might not be accurate. She is not that familiar with the river, or she might not have gone there, or she was careless thinking about something else, and she is not familiar with things, and she just told 20 miles. He laughed and he continued his travel. Okay? And as he was progressing, a flash of red and green color was there up above his head, and he looked, and it was a parrot, a very beautiful parrot. Feathers were green and the beak were red in color. So beautiful, isn't it? Parrot. He saw the parrot, he saw the beautiful nature, the forest. As we have already mentioned, the lush green ferns, plants, little shrubs, bushes, and all such things. And then he saw the trickle of water on the hillside. He ran near because he was feeling so thirsty, because he was walking miles like this for hours. So he was feeling very thirsty. So he stopped to drink some water from the hillside. It was so cold. He collected the water in his hands and he started drinking it. It's cold, but it was refreshing. A double boost he got, double power, he got charged so that he can travel much more. So after drinking the water, he continued walking, and then he saw somewhere in front of him a boy, a village boy, who was driving his goat. You're familiar with the goat, isn't it? What is the sound made by goat? Isn't it? So there might be certain mimicry artist among you. Yes, he was driving the goat. He ran towards the boy and asked the village boy, "How far is the river, do you know?" And the village boy looked at our hero and told, "Well, not so far, my dear. You can just go forward, take a bend, and straight down you can find the beautiful river." The boy was feeling happy. He need not go much more, but he was feeling very hungry. Okay? He has something with him, isn't it? He has wrapped up something. What is that? Very good. The loaf of bread is with him, isn't it? So he unwrapped the newspaper, took the loaf of bread, and he broke it into two halves of bread, gave one to the village boy, and he took the other. They sat on the hillside and they both had this loaf of bread. They sat there quiet, which means they were not talking to each other till then. After finishing off this bread, their tummy was full. They continued walking. But then they started talking and talking and talking. So they made a good relationship. Yeah, they became good friends. Okay, they were talking about the nature, maybe some fun activities that they do at home and so on. Okay, and the boy, so obviously he did not care about the smarting of his feet. He was very tired, isn't it? Because walking long way without his shoes, barefooted, he was barefooted, isn't it? He doesn't care about the pain. He doesn't care about the scorching sun, the brightly shining sun. We will be tired when we are under the sun for hours, isn't it? So he wasn't uh, uh, he was not aware about the scorching sun or the distance that he had to walk because he had such a good companion with him. They continued their walk, but in some point of time, they had to take two different paths. They had to diverge. They had to separate. The boy had to go to the river and the village boy had to go in another path to his village. Okay? And they got separated. They diverged. And the boy, the hero of the story, our boy, 12-year-old boy, was very disappointed because his companion is gone. He couldn't see, when he looked back, he couldn't see his house because he has crossed the mountain. He had come down, stepped down the mountain. So the mountain hid his house. So his house wasn't visible for him. And something more, he came to see the river and he hadn't seen the river yet. So all this, and even he finished off his bread. He is, if he feels hungry, he doesn't have the bread, anything remaining with him. So he was all very much disappointed. But he was very determined, okay, that he decided to see the river and only then he'll go back home. He had that strong determination with him too. And then he continued walking. And again, there came a point where he understood that there was only the sun, the forest, and loneliness with him. There were no people around. There were only sun, the forest, and complete loneliness. There was complete silence in that forest. He was all alone. That silence is not the silence that we experience when we are in a room all alone, or in some street, or when the teacher comes to the class and say silence. It is not that silence. It is something very divine. It is a silence that has some power. It is silence of God. You can feel such a silence when you are all alone, deserted in a forest. So he enjoyed the calm silence, the peace. And then he moved forward. And breaking the silence, he heard a sound. That was the beautiful sound of the river that he was waiting for. He took a bend and he saw the river flowing, tumbling through the rocks. He saw the fishes. He saw the crystal clear water flowing. He was so excited. This is something that I was waiting for. This was the river that I was waiting for, dreaming of. This is the river that the villagers were talking about. And he started gasping, which means he couldn't even control his breath. And he ran on his way. He slipped, stumbled on the rocks, and he was about to fall down. He went near the river. He dipped his angle depth into the water. Okay. Since he was barefooted and was walking all these miles, without shoes or slippers, there might be some cuts or cracks, isn't it? So when you dip that particular feet into the water, cool chill water, you'd feel a pain, isn't it? The same happened here too. He felt the pain, but he literally enjoyed because this was a river that he wanted to feel personally, he wanted to touch. That had happened, his dream has come true. He looked all around and he saw the water which was blue, white and clear, which means it was so pure water. Now, that's the end of the story. This is a slightly adapted version, which means in the original text by Ruskin Bond, the complete version of the story is available. Now we have, which means you have just this slightly adapted version to learn. Now you might be wondering what next, isn't it? Now what you have to do is, I was telling you the story. You were listening to the story told by the teacher, isn't it? If so, what you have to do next is, you have to revisit the story in your English course book titled How Far is the River? You have to read aloud the entire story, and you have to mark the unfamiliar words in the story, which we have already discussed. For example, thickly forested mountain, the boy was barefooted, sturdy, which means strong boy, and many such new words we have discussed. And you can find a glossary in page number 33. Go to page number 33. You'll find those words, the unfamiliar words, and the meanings with examples. You have to note it down into your notebook. You have to underline, note it down into your notebook. And also you have certain textual questions on the side of the story given. You have to read the questions and find the answers from the text of the story. Okay? For example, what prevented the boy from seeing the river? What prevented the boy from seeing the river? The thickly forested mountain, isn't it? So similarly, you have to find the answers for all the questions given in the side of the story. Okay? Now, enjoy, read the story, find the answers, learn the new words, and what more, enjoy the story by Ruskin Bond. We'll continue in the other sessions. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Bye.